Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Analyzing politics in the year 2025 absolutely needs to be done with a psychologist and a priest, right? Because everything is just so insane. The rug pull, bait and switch, absolute betrayal of his base, his MAGA base by Donald Trump is quite breathtaking to behold. As someone who has been a critic of President Trump since the very beginning, as you all know, I hate to say I told you so 10 long years ago after he came down the golden escalator. I told my audience, well, he is a New York City liberal Democrat, and he will always be a New York City liberal Democrat. And it turns out, after a very long decade, 10 years of one betrayal after another, I was right. And I don't say that gleefully. I don't say that to rub it in anyone's faces. As you guys know, I'm the only gal in quote unquote conservative media who desperately wishes that I am wrong about so many things. But unfortunately, I was right about Trump. And that's why it is no surprise to me that he is welcoming the communist socialist mayor of New York City, who he railed against as little as a week or two ago, encouraging New York City voters to actually vote for Andrew Cuomo. He is now welcoming Mom Donnie into the Oval Office, praising him, aligning with him. None of this is surprising to me, but it is highly traumatic for his base. And the past 8 to 9 months of his second administration has also been highly traumatic for Trump's base as he shoves them out of the nest and betrays them on almost every issue. And that's why the headline today, we are going to be looking at Marjorie Taylor Greene. We are witnessing right now a major shakeup in the political paradigm. Marjorie Taylor Greene, as you know, last week, dumping Donald Trump. It is an epic breakup letter. She's now defecting to America First. But this is setting up a new paradigm for the 2028 presidential election. And the question on many Americans' minds is, do we trust Marjorie Taylor Greene? Is this a real and honest come to Jesus awakening realization that the man that she supported, that she stuck by for nearly a decade, has utterly betrayed her and her constituency group, and she is now omitting herself from the political process only to recede into the background? I don't know, maybe launch a new business in her home state, who knows? Or is she realigning politically? Is she joining this new apparatus, America First, this new movement, or some would say the latest PSYOP, to replace the MAGA PSYOP, which was run by Donald Trump for the better part of the last decade? We're seeing everything realign. Essentially, the checkerboard has been tossed into the air. The pieces are everywhere. Trump is aligning with terror organizations and former terrorists and communists from New York City. He's aligning with big tech and the big banksters. He's betraying everyone on the Epstein files. You name it. It is breathtaking, the rate of betrayal from this administration. But it's almost as if it's necessary in order to jar that base into the new apparatus, the new movement, which is America First. And what is the goal of that movement? Well, I would say, and jury is out on Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, if you put a paper bag over your head and you read MTG's breakup letter as she divorces herself from MAGA and Donald Trump, you might think it's me, right? Because the things that she is saying in that letter are the things that I have been saying to all of you for the past 10 years. It's wonderful to see this acknowledged by someone with such a large following. And I hope that her words are sincere. I hope that in the next few years, we are going to see her make good on her promises to her constituents and to the people of the United States of America. I have a statement on that as well. So we're going to be looking at her letter, and we're going to be analyzing this new paradigm. We're going to landscape today a rapidly changing political paradigm as MAGA and MAHA retreat and America First ascends. And as you all know, I believe all of these are operations. They are manufactured. Some would call them psyops, but the point is to capture the authentic freedom movement building in America, distrust of our institutions, distrust of both political parties. Many Americans now believing that our elections don't even matter, especially at the federal level, because both of the parties are working together to screw the regular American people time and time again. Many Americans don't trust our electoral system. They don't trust the voting machines. And so this is leading to a new movement in America that necessarily has to be captured. And in order for them to capture this movement, they have to acknowledge some blatant truths, right? And then bring you in to the new apparatus and focus all of your attention, all of your anger, all of your hope, all of your frustration into a new political party, the America First Party, led by Nick Fuentes, who is now being platformed by the very same organizations and entities that have platformed Donald Trump and platformed MTG and the MAHA movement and the MAGA movement. They are now moving to this new entity, Nick Fuentes being rehabilitated and recast as a palatable political figure by not only Tucker Carlson, but also entities like the New York Times and Facebook, as the algorithms are pushing out his content and reestablishing him as the new young leader of a dissident movement in the United States of America. And Nick Fuentes has decided that he is going to shape the next election. I have a story from the Free Press that shows how Nick Fuentes believes that he can rehabilitate his organization, the America First organization, to determine who gets elected in 2028. Americans are uniting on the pain that they are experiencing at the grocery store for healthcare, for electricity, college tuition, energy, automobiles, you name it. Everyone is being pinched, and everyone knows it. We're also seeing the Americans unite on this issue of Epstein. This is polling overwhelmingly high in the 90% and into 90%. Americans want these files released. And it's really interesting to watch this play out across the country and to observe the left-wing media and the right-wing media and how they report this to their audiences, right? Both the left and the right want the files released. Why? Because it is common knowledge. It is well known that Jeffrey Epstein was a child sex trafficker. He was also a child abuser. And that is why he went to prison. It's also why his right-hand woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, also went to prison. We also know that in the process of convicting Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, there were thousands upon thousands of documents, likely hundreds of thousands of pages and photos and emails that were collected by intelligence over two administrations and two parties. So this started under the Donald Trump administration. It ended under the Biden administration and is now being continued into the second Trump administration. So this has spanned both left and right. And the cover-up has spanned both left and right. In those documents, those thousands of pages and hundreds of thousands of images and emails, we know, based on reporting from the New York Times, from the Miami Herald, and other outlets, that there are named pedophiles, named Johns, men who abused young women and likely young boys as well, potentially women. Hillary Clinton has been tossed out as one of those names. So we know that the trafficking happened. We know that it existed. That's why Jeffrey and Ghislaine were thrown into prison. What we don't know are the names, or what we haven't seen justice on, are the actual men who raped children, who paid Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to abuse and rape children. Justice has never been served for the thousands of women who were impacted by this child sex trafficking ring. Americans also know, because this has been reported on in both right-wing news outlets and left-wing news outlets, that Jeffrey Epstein was tied to Israeli intelligence and the Mossad, and also U.S. intelligence, the CIA. That is very evident and well documented in the reporting of people like Whitney Webb and her co-reporter Matt Goodwin. We have reporting from Nick Bryant. We have reporting from Michael Wolff. We have reporting from right-wing news outlets, right? It's all there. And so that's why this story is so important, because it does not only touch child sex trafficking, which is horrifying and used to blackmail heads of states, bureaucrats, leaders, politicians, and billionaires, very powerful figures, but it also points to and exposes a criminal enterprise, money laundering, weapons trafficking, all of the bad things that have corrupted Washington, D.C. and Western governments across the globe are wrapped up in the Epstein scandal. And so the release of these files and the exposure of these criminals and pedophiles is only the tip of the iceberg. And Whitney Webb has a very good tweet that we're going to look at in a moment that explains how important that is. The exposure of not just the child sex trafficking, but the criminal enterprise. But it's so fascinating because even in this story, right, after 6 months, Tom Massey, Ro Khanna succeed in getting this bill passed, which, by the way, had very few sponsors just as little as a month ago. But it was the pressure from the American people, the culture, that pushed this over the edge. If you look at right-wing news coverage, so I was listening to Jesse Waters on Fox News as part of my show prep, and they're reporting now on the Epstein files and the Epstein emails and the release of these files. And it's only Democrats that they're scrutinizing, right? Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, any Democrat that they can find, they will report on and scrutinize. They won't touch any of the Republicans that are being named, namely Donald Trump. You have to go to the left-wing news media outlets to find that reporting. So I hopped on over to the New York Times to see how they were reporting this story. And of course, all of the coverage over at the New York Times is about Donald Trump, calling the reporter Piggy, and how he was named in a lot of these emails, right? And it was even, and you saw this in the headline here, President Trump was filmed telling a female reporter, "Quiet, Piggy," when she asked him about the Epstein files. This reporter questioned the president directly about emails released last week in which the convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein wrote about his relationship with Trump and claimed that he knew about the girls. This is from the Times reporting, the Times of London. And so there's very still lopsided reporting. That's why this is a difficult story to report on. But the good news is, let's take this win. This is a win. Tom Massey did a good thing. And I know there are a lot of people out there, Debbie Downers and naysayers and have no fundsers, who want to say, oh, well, nothing's going to happen because, as you know, Mike Johnson and President Trump are both not happy about this. President Trump saying that, and Mike Johnson intimating that they are going to launch an investigation. If they launch an investigation and put Pam Bondi in charge of it, well, then that could close up these files again, and then we're going to have to fight another battle. And people are kind of pointing to Tom Massey as like, well, you suck. Here you did this thing, and it's not even going to work because they can do this, this, and this. That doesn't mean you still don't do the thing, right? We're only called to do what we can do from our corner of the world according to the platform and the power that we have. Tom Massey can't do everything, but he did something very brave. He crossed over the aisle and joined up with a Democrat on something that matters on the issue of principles and justice, and that was a good thing. So congratulations to you, Tom Massey. Congratulations to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm not always on the same page with her and some of the other women. Nancy Mace is yet another one who stood up, stuck their necks out, and have been called traitors now by the president of the United States because they did the right thing. Let's give them credit for what they did. 2 weeks from now, a month from now, I might be on the different side of an issue with any of these people. But for today, I want to give them credit for that, and also the Democrats who stepped up as well. So this is a fluid story. And we're going to have Nick Bryant on. I'm working on Nick either next week early or after Thanksgiving to kind of reset on this story and take a look at where we are in terms of justice for these victims. But I think we need to push forward from this. And again, I think this is a good day. You know, it's not Tom Massey's fault that President Trump is going to try to put the kibosh on this. And I want to address another element as well before we get to the other headline, which is this very, very real threat of the digital grid and the techno-fascists locking in on this country. That's the biggest story of this presidential administration and Donald Trump. The fact that he's essentially, in the same way that he handed this nation over to Anthony Fauci, kind of, in the dark days of lockdowns in the March of 2020, in the first 6 months of his presidency, he essentially conferred all power and all authority to an unelected cabal of techno-fascists, tech bros, the PayPal mafia. And we saw them coming together again. By the way, Elon Musk is back in the fray. Elon Musk is dining once again with Donald Trump. Your girl told you 3 months ago that was a bit of fake fighting, him stomping off because his Doge wasn't getting what he wanted. Yeah, okay. Not real. It's all a joke. Elon Musk is, fully connected. He's still getting his government contracts. He's still getting his subsidies. He is still tethered to this administration and benefiting from sucking up about $1 trillion worth of your private information when he went in with his Hoover during the first few weeks of the Trump administration and sucked up, trillions of dollars worth of Americans' private data, from IRS data to Treasury data to Social Security data, you name it. Elon Musk has got it. And he put it up in his cloud. He has control over it. And believe me, he's going to wield that power. Big thank you to our sponsors over at Purge. Right now, this is the product that I've been using. I'm on day 7 of my 15-day intestinal purge. So this is an advanced cleanse for digestive health. And, growing up, speaking of our healthcare system, every time you get sick, whether you have the sniffles, a sore throat, inflammation, you go to the doctor and it's always either a virus or a bacteria. So you get an antiviral or an antibacteria. Well, when was the last time you went to your medical doctor when you were dealing with some sort of malady and they said to you, hey, you know what? Maybe it's a parasite. Maybe it's not viral or bacterial, but maybe it's parasitic. This idea that humans can't have parasites or don't have parasites is one of the most interesting suppressed pieces of information that I have seen. And I just thought when I first started thinking about parasites, I'm like, wow, like no one ever talks about them. But it is very true that humans can have parasites, and those parasites can impact your health in many, many negative ways. Right now, Purge is giving you guys 15% off of your order if you go to www.purgestore.com/joy. That is purgestore.com/joy. Use the promo code JOY. Join me on this cleanse, right? Again, we can't do anything about the parasites in Washington, D.C., but we can take care of it. We can take responsibility for our own bodies and make sure that we are naturally healthy with regular parasitic cleanses. 15% off right now in your order if you go to purgestore.com/joy. How are you doing?
Well, it's tough. You got me following Ed Zoll. He's smarter than me, better looking, more hair. What am I supposed to do here? You're killing me.
I think you look great. You just need like the sassy jacket. Like he's got the leather
he's got
going.
The jacket did look good.
Lighting going. Yeah.
Well,
no, you look fantastic.
Just so people know, it's been a little chilly here in South Florida, so Ed's just being a wuss with the jacket. I'm just saying.
Dr. Sansone has been one of the most principled and consistent medical freedom advocates out there, and consistently holding people to the line regarding what we need to do about the mRNA technology, what we need to do to help COVID-19 vaccine victims, you name it. He's been on it. But you're also a psychologist. And, you know, the last couple of times I've had you on, I've been talking about really wanting to discuss with you the nature of psychological operations, from the mass formation of COVID-19 that we saw, leading people to, you know, cover their faces with filthy rags and inject themselves with experimental potions and do all kinds of crazy things, to what I think is the mass formation we see today around the Trump administration and the cult of Donald Trump, and even the cult of Bobby Kennedy, even as they betray their constituencies, one after another after another. I mean, this week has just been one rug pull after another. It all feels quite contrived to me. And you're an expert in this. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on the news of the day and where we are within the medical freedom movement, and how, you know, they are manipulating us from a mass perspective into, I think, a state of apathy and despondence, and also ultimately, which will lead to subjugation. So that's kind of where I wanted to go with you, if you would care to elaborate.
Yeah, so people know, I got a text yesterday from Shannon, and she's like, "Help! Everybody's crazy. Explain it to me." No, I'm just kidding. But
That's basically, yeah. I'm like, I can't.
yeah, I mean, the learned helplessness is a real problem, and that is a real phenomenon that's been shown in other species besides just human beings. In fact, the first studies was with dogs with that, but they've even shown it in other species, and that's a real problem, because everywhere you turn, it seems to be not effective, and after a while, you just don't do anything, because you have so many times where, you know, the Republicans will raise money to fight something, and then when they get in there, they don't do anything. There's always a reason why they can't do it, and then the Democrats come in, they just ignore the law and do what they want, you know. And so it's a little bit of a dog and pony show going on there. So some of it is creating the false options. And look, I get it. Rationally, we look at it, and you choose the lesser of the evils, you know. And there's part of me saying, well, we might have been better off if Kamala Harris won, because then Republican activists would all be pushing back and everything. But then I look at Canada, which is basically, I'm going to be talking about later, they're basically passing a law that may actually be interpreted as capital punishment for free speech, what they call hate speech. And then, lawyer Lisa Marone, we were talking about this, and things like that. Or UK, people are getting arrested for their memes. So it's like,
yes,
I get it. Yep. The lesser of the evils, but you know, if you pick the lesser of the evils, when you get them in there, you still got to keep constant pressure on them. And I think they set up this false dichotomy that people fall into. And, you know, you talk about mass formation, that's a lot like mass hypnosis. You know, these things can be called different things. But when you say something over and over again in different ways, people start absorbing it. Because think about it, we learn by suggestion. Power of suggestion works all the time, but what's not actually taught is caught. You see what someone's doing, you learn how they're doing, you emulate it. With parents, this happens both in good and bad. What they don't teach you, sometimes you catch. It's, you know, what's not taught is caught. You can pick up bad habits and good habits from your parents or things like that. And when you're looking at society as a whole, we've got a lot of mass media coming at us in different ways, setting up these false dichotomies, these false narratives. I believe that much of the so-called alternative media itself is BS, because people are there to control narratives. And that, I tell you why, in my case, nobody's talked about, you know, which, you know, by the way, a 30-second promo on that, I kind of won by losing in my appeal.
I want to hear about that in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. But, and I'll cycle back to it. But, so you've got a limited hangout with RFK Jr. I heard you talking about Hatfield earlier. A friend of mine texted RFK about that, and his response was something to the effect of, you know, it was a difficult decision, but it's my decision. I run my office. So nobody can say somebody else did it. But he's running a limited hangout because he's admitted that the shots are harmful, that, you know, there's no prophylactic effect, the risk outweigh the benefits. And then he's turning around and he's talking about having double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. I mean, that's just total BS. He knows that these are bioweapons. He knows they're designed to harm. and so does President Trump. So these people don't have an excuse. So most important thing is, see, what happens is you get into this group dynamic and you stop thinking for yourself because you develop like a group identity, and you
Yes.
start going with the group. Now, I actually finished my manuscript, but I'm still tweaking it. But you know, what they did is they tapped into, for instance, the narcissism. The leaders and followers have these traits, but the followers, they tapped into their communal narcissism, which was like the virtue
Mm,
signaling and that kind of thing. This during COVID, for
right.
instance.
Yep.
And then the collective narcissism, which is the us versus them, and they do that all the time. And so
Hmm.
these are qualities that both the leaders and the followers possess. So, yeah, I mean, give an example. Like I found fibromyalgia studies that show that just giving someone the suggestions while they're awake for pain makes changes to the brain. It's just when you're in a
Wow.
hypnotic trance state, it's much more amplified. But the radio, TV, and even the computer to a great extent, these are hypnotic mediums, and people are influenced by it. And so some of this is the herding instinct. It's that social conformity thing, like with Solomon Ash, where, one of the studies where he showed, with the social conformity. And that's a bit of a protective thing because, if you stay within the
Hmm.
herd, a lot of times that protects you. When a lot of
Right.
times the people that step out are the ones that get attacked, right? But the
That's
problem with
right.
that is the herd often morphs into the animal pack, and that's what we saw during COVID. We saw
Right.
normal. Look, we grew up being like, asking questions like, "Well, how did the Nazis go for this, or how did the Soviets go for this? How did people fall for this?" When we just watched it, we just literally watched it.
Hmm.
And the problem is the pervasiveness of the technology and the mass media today. It's not, and on the flip side, though, the censorship works a lot. Okay, so we're awake. We see something and we're assuming it's BS unless proven otherwise most of the time. But if you're not awake and you're going about your day, most people just look at headlines and this kind of thing. They don't dig down. And it's pretty easy to manipulate a population because I guarantee you most of our population, or a good chunk of it, maybe it's changing, but probably doesn't even know that those shots are harmful, let alone a weapon.
Mm.
And
Yes,
that's the
except for, yeah, yeah. What do you make of using fear and hatred in order to drive, and separation in order to drive people into a willingness, or I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, if I'm to look out at the political landscape and my colleagues on the left and on the right over the past 15 years, and I have studied media. I was in advertising and marketing for 13 years before I got behind the mic, and I've been watching, media play out, and the reporting on politics. And what I have seen is really a siloing of two distinct constituency groups: Republicans, Democrats, left or right, right? And the rhetoric about the other side has grown to such a fevered pitch. There's so much fear of the other side that it almost acts as a trauma. And I do think that there have been trauma moments in our nation, collective trauma moments, like 9/11 and like COVID and the shutdown, the pandemic. That was a massive trauma. Like the fear and the anxiety, and those reactions to what happened are very real. And I think
Mhm.
that is so powerful in putting people in a vulnerable psychological state, so that they then will cling to a hero, right? So things are so bad with the left and the lockdowns and Biden that people will naturally, the herding instinct that you talked about, will naturally move. They will look to Trump as a hero. They will look to Bobby Kennedy as a hero. And I think that bond is so strong in some ways to a small segment of people that it doesn't matter what they do. They could abuse you, they could gaslight you, they could betray you, they could lie to you. There is nothing strong enough to break that bond among those people. And then I also think when you couple and you take those populations, they're not that big. I'd say it's 10% on the left, 10% on the right. But you take those populations and you create caricatures of them, and then you push that out into social media through influencers, bots, and trolls, and you repeat it over and over. It's like right now the normalization of Nick Fuentes, right?
Mhm.
This guy, he's a paid influencer, he's an actor, Okay. They like, he's so vile and horrifying, even though he's not real. But people think that that's what he is, and he's platformed. And so it creates this like, this is why I texted you yesterday. Like, it feels like crazy town.
So think of like your different. Well, okay, I'll get back to that. So the fear thing, it's like, okay, part of the definition of hypnosis is a heightened focus or a reduced peripheral awareness and an altered state of consciousness. You're more suggestible and so on. But when you're
Okay.
talking about the mass formation, like you see in a totalitarian, it's a similar thing. It's a heightened focus over here, and you're not looking at all this other stuff. So when you induce that
Mm,
fear and hatred,
right.
one, you're getting rid of the logical part of the mind. You're going right to the hindbrain with all the emotions, right? You go into fight or
Yeah.
flight, and you're easier to move and manipulate. And keep in mind, political activists of all persuasions, if you spend enough time there, you're going to see, I think, a higher percentage of people with both, even if they're not clinically at the threshold, both bipolar kind of qualities, but also borderline personality kind of tendencies, where they've got
Wow.
that emotional irregulation with the interpersonal boundaries, the all or nothing. You're on a pedestal until they realize you're human, then you're a piece of crap. The other thing I can say from
Mm.
personal experience is the worst thing you can do in politics is believe your own spin.
We need to help free Reiner Fulmick, and we're going to do that, and we're going to try to drum up as much attention and information and awareness about this. It's happening right now, and we just can't let this stand. We're not going to leave any man behind, and that includes Reiner. The woman at the center of this effort to bring attention to and free Reiner Fulmick is Seba Terabellini, and she joins me today from Switzerland. Seba, you have been following this story for quite some time, during the time when most of the medical freedom community had forgotten Reiner Fulmick. He was arrested in Mexico, detained in Germany, and has now been languishing in prison under terrible conditions for many, many months, almost 2 years, I believe. Can you please give us a brief overview? And thank you for your service, and thank you for not forgetting him. He was a critical, critical beacon of truth in the dark days of COVID before anyone else. He was one of the very first, and deserves this scrutiny on his conditions. But can you give us an overview of how he is doing?
Since he was moved to another prison, the Bremerförde prison, the conditions there were slightly better than at Rosdorf prison, where he was tortured, but we can come back to this. So he's
Mm,
doing well. He's stronger than ever. That's what he says.
okay.
And he can't wait. Yeah, he can't wait to get out, to take down the entire German judicial system. He says that it's totally corrupt and criminal. That's what
Mm,
Reiner says. But I'm starting by maybe summarizing the most important aspects of Reiner's case. The world knows that Reiner is innocent. We all know that he's a political prisoner, and his show trial has been a blatant perversion of justice and will be remembered as the biggest judicial scandal ever seen in Germany. Reiner was not arrested in Mexico, he was kidnapped in Mexico, and this
mm,
kidnapping was disguised as a deportation first and as an extradition after he was arrested at Frankfurt airport. He was arrested upon a European arrest warrant based on a completely false criminal complaint. He was denied a fair hearing for more than 1 year, and he
mm.
was jailed lawfully. He has been denied a fair and impartial trial, and he has been tortured for at least 6 months. And the sentencing of 3 years and 9 months in prison is nothing but scandalous. Reiner had to be stopped, not because he did something wrong, but because he had gathered all the evidence. about what he calls the biggest crimes against humanity ever perpetrated. That's why he had to be stopped.
3 years and 9 months in prison. And you mentioned he was denied a hearing for 1 year, so held unjustly without even an opportunity to put together a defense or answer charges, and then convicted, apparently after hearing. What did they convict him on, and what was the nature of the charges eventually leveled against him?
Oh, that's yeah. It's going to be very complicated now.
Okay.
All the charges were false. Each one was false. So the very last charge was illegal loans. He had to take loans to protect the money from being seized by the German authorities. You will remember what happened to the Canadian truckers, right? So he knew he was being targeted, and he knew he had to protect the money very quickly. So in order to protect the money, he and his co-host Vivian Fisher decided to invest 1 million euros in buying gold, and
Yes.
then both of them, which is also important because both did the same thing, but only one is in prison.
My financial advisor. He's been with me for over 15 years, Don Polano of PCM and Associates. As you all know, my philosophy on investing is all of the above. So I'm hugely bullish on gold and silver, physical gold and silver, and also the gold and silver IRA. I also love real estate, which I can't get into right now because it's too overpriced. So that's kind of a bummer. But I also have money in the stock market, the good old traditional stock market. Now, right now, I am not in tech stocks at all whatsoever. I have very, very boring stocks and some international. And this is what I love about Don Polano is that he knows, he respects my belief system. He shares my belief system. And for what I do have in the stock market, in those investments for my retirement, he takes great care of me. He helps people all over the country and the world. And he is taking on clients, opening it up to all of you. So if you go to 1-800, if you call 1-800-536-1368, that is 1-800-536-1368. You can talk to Dom and get started. If you are unsure of the politics of your financial advisor, or if you're a little jittery about the stock market right now and you want to move some things around, he is your guy. You can also go to pcmpolano.com to learn more about him. That is pcmpolano.com. It is wonderful to have a financial analyst and advisor who shares my values, and that's Don Polano.
Even more scandalous were the judge's decision not to calculate the entire pre-trial detention he had already served at the time of the sentencing. He had already served 18 months. He only deducted 13. So in the end, the sentencing is 4 years and 2 months, which is more than scandalous. Yes.
Can you tell me about the conditions, Seba, that he has suffered?
Yes. He was put in solitary confinement for 6 months. 6 months, which is against human rights. He was not allowed to see his dying mother, nor attend her funeral, which was really heartbreaking. It was devastating for all of us to find out what they did to this man. So every time he was taken from the prison to the court, he was handcuffed and shackled, and he was asked to wear bulletproof vest. And after returning back to prison after the hearings, he had to undergo a body search. Yeah, and these 6 months of solitary confinement, um, a young guy with serious mental health issues was placed in the cell next to his. This guy was screaming all the time, was crying, was talking to himself. He was throwing objects to the wall, and he stayed there for a few weeks. And during this period of time, Rainer was not able to sleep anymore and to concentrate on his case. He said that there were empty cells a bit further, but he was placed exactly in the cell next to his. And this is white torture. They wanted to drive Rainer crazy, but they might have understood by now that he won't break. He's too strong. He's supported by his wife. He's supported by many, many, many people around the world. And he says that he feels this love and support from the people. And that's what's keep him on. That's why he's still standing after having suffered all these punitive measures.
Barron and Eric get their daddy to send out a tweet that they know is going to crash crypto or equity markets, and they short the crypto and equity markets 30 seconds before he sends the tweet, and they all make millions upon millions of dollars. It's estimated they've made like $800 million this year.
That's right.
Just off this, this market manipulation. I've got access to a platform for my trading that offers me real-time ticker flow. I can see what happens on the markets in real time. I'll be in the middle of a sentence and all of a sudden I'll just stop. It was like, nope, got to do something, because something will come across my ticker. I'll see an enormous amount of money come in for, a short of a market, an equity market, a crypto market. And I don't know what it is and I don't know who it is, but I know what it is. Right. And I know that's somebody that's inside the administration that knows something is about to happen. Some tweet is going to go out. Some piece of news is going to go out that's going to create volatility. And it was like, well, I've got to buy this too. Right. Because I want the money. Now, I'm not trading on insider information. I'm trading on flow data. But, I've made so much cash off that this year because you can see it. They're not even trying to hide it. We used to talk, conservatives used to be against this sort of thing. We spent 4 years yelling about Burisma and Hunter Biden's arts and, all of the corruption of the Biden regime. And that was righteous and we were correct. And now we applaud when this administration is doing 10 times worse, but even worse, they're not even trying to cover it up. They're doing it right in front of you. And their fans are applauding it as though they get to take part. It's like, you're never going to get an invite to his new ballroom.
There is a light at the end of the tunnel, damn it. Bonk, we're going to find it, okay? Because, but I agree with you. I feel like Cher in Moonstruck and everyone is Nicolas Cage, and I want to like smack him across the face and say, snap the F out of it. Like, you need, like, this is like all hands on deck. This is not good. It's side deals, the back deals, the subsidies, the pay to play, pump and dumps, insider trading, and now the shut down government, which I suspect might be a permanent shutdown, because I think they like running money through the back channels without oversight from Congress. And I could see Trump. I mean, they're talking about giving Trump a third term. I could see him declaring an emergency. I mean, I could see them doing anything at this point to expand and consolidate the power at the executive level, because it's just, they can do whatever they want. They can make whatever deal they want. They don't have to deal with Congress, transparency, with the people, elections, you name it. So I mean, that's a bitter black pill, but am I overstating that? What do you make of kind of the wild, wild west lawlessness of what's happening within the federal government in context of the economy today?
So this is one of the reasons why the market is doing so well and the economy in general is so risk on is the people that drive capital understand that if you have capital, crime is now legal. And we see this everywhere. You can commit crime and you will get away with it. On the lower level, on individual levels, we see it with the pardons Trump has issued out. He pardoned Trevor Milton, who stole $5 billion from investors with a fake company called Nikola Motors.
Get ready to rethink how you build and deploy your retirement wealth.
Traditional investing is dead.
Aggregated total of monies in retirement funds in the U.S. are pushing $35 trillion right now.
The capital's there, and it's invested in just basic stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And I think that the investor of today just needs to expand what they can do with that money.
So with Rocket Dollar, you can make private and alternative investments, single-family property, homes, limited partnership investments in private equity and venture funds. It could be even cryptocurrencies or digital assets and everything in between. Holding real estate next to your public stocks, and I always joke around that it's no longer the S&P 500, it's the S&P 7. And dollar for dollar, if you own these inside of IRAs,
you typically end up getting 20 to 40% better annual returns than owning the same investment outside of that IRA account, because you don't have to pay taxes on an ongoing basis. I have parents who have no retirement savings because they work in the restaurant industry. I love that I figured out a way to be impactful to Main Street, normal working individuals, people that it would have changed the course of my parents' lives had they met someone like that.
The lady in Nevada that stole all the money, she said she was going to make a giant statue honoring veterans, and she took all the money and she kept it. Gave him a pile of cash. She got a pardon. She got to keep the money. Right? Crime is legal as long as you can pay it off. We look at this new ballroom that the White House is building, and Trump is correctly saying, he's right. He's saying not a dime of that $300 million is taxpayer money. What he's not saying is if you go through the donor list of all the entities that paid the $300 million, every one of them was a company that had tariff exposure, that was at risk because of tariffs, and as a result of their donations to Trump's library campaign, to the ballroom fund, have gotten exemptions from the tariffs.
Outrageous.
Internally, the administration just last week because everybody says, oh, he's donating his salary. Just last week, it came out that he was demanding one of the 3-letter agencies that he is in control of. He demanded that they authorize a settlement to him in the amount of about $130 million for some misdeed he claims they made against him. Now, find anywhere else in our nation's history where a sitting president has ordered an agency that he controls to make a settlement payment to the president for government overreach when he's the leader of the government.
It's insane.
We already talked about Barron and Eric and the crypto and the shorting the markets before he sends tariff tweets. It's all just, it's so this is why I said in the last segment, they're not even trying to hide it. They're just so open about it because they know their followers don't care. The followers think, yeah, we're winning. We're finally getting, like, they've been screwing us for so long. It's like, I don't see him helping you. What is he doing? They're keeping the money. Like, you're not getting any of this. Why are you applauding this?
They don't know, Bonk. They don't know. I can't tell you how many people I talk to. This is why I'm in such a bad mood. Okay? Because you're right. There are some supporters of Trump that are like, I don't care. As long as he's smashing Democrats, I don't care. Right? But there are so many like good, honest, conservative Christians, people who believe in free markets, they believe in the Constitution. They have no idea this is happening because they watch Fox News and they listen to Glenn Beck and they listen to AM talk radio. And literally the entirety of conservative media is talking about anything but the reality of the economic situation and the corruption, right? And actually like lying to them about what is actually going on. And it's I feel this is why it's just very hard for me sometimes to do this job, because I do feel like I am it is a slow moving, excruciating, flaming dumpster fire on a train heading off of a cliff with a drunken conductor. And I'm like watching it. I'm like, oh my gosh, people, like wake up, protect yourselves, because this is what's happening. And it's like, I can't stop it. Can't stop it. You know, it's tragic.
No,
Tragic.
and I've been saying for over a year, is like the only way to snap people out of this malaise, this slumber that they're in, is they're going to have to experience pain.
Yeah.
You know, and when Trump won in November, I started making the joke. It was like, all right, well, you guys voted for this. I'll wave as I drive by and see you standing in the bread line. And you know, at the time, and it was like, this is just going to be a 4-year I told you so. You know, and I'm starting to actually see it happening, and I'm reading the articles. Matter of fact, there was one that just came out a week or two ago that there was a food pantry in Washington, D.C. for the furloughed workers. And like the line stretched blocks. Like these federal workers didn't even have 3 weeks worth of savings. They were already starving. And the reality is I'm finding it more difficult than I thought it would be to laugh at this.
No,
You know,
you
I'm not
have a
affected
heart,
by
Bonk.
it. And they're,
Yeah.
and I acknowledge that they voted for it and they asked for it, but it's still hard to watch.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not really sure what to do with that, because I understand that this has to happen in order for us to heal. Like something's got to snap us out of this. You know, we've got this bifurcated economy right now. It's not even a stock market. It's 13 companies.
Right. Right.
You know, AI companies account for 44% of the S&P 500 right now. That's the only thing keeping anybody's 401ks afloat right now.
Right.
You know, most companies, most people are not prospering. But the thing is, like, it's happening in such a weird way, in such, you know, various pockets. It's occurring, but not at the same time. And it's really hard to track it down and get people to experience the same sharp pain at the exact same time, to where they rise up and say, stop this right now. We're not doing this anymore. Like, we understand there's nothing we can do this year, but by God, midterms are next year. And you people need to tell this guy to stop ruling by executive order, because it's killing us, or else we're going to water the freaking tree of liberty.
Right.
You know,
I mean,
like, something has to occur, but I thought it would be easier for me to see people fail than it has been.
No,
I don't know. That was kind of a rambling answer. I'm sorry.
Well, it's not easy. And I don't necessarily blame people. I have a hard enough time figuring out what the hell is going on every day. And I do a show. It's my job. You know, most people out there are obliterated by the news cycle every day. Everyone is lying to us. Everyone. Financial markets, left-wing news media, right-wing news media, Democrats, Republicans. You know, yes, you know, we the people, we have lost our way. We're not holding politicians accountable. We're not taking care of ourselves. We're not remembering our Constitution. We're not being independent. We're accepting dependency, and we have for 50, 60, 70 years, but it's always been, you know, one layered dependency over another, and we've never really attacked the root of the problem. And so our society today is grappling with 70 years of growing corruption and distortions of the truth about a variety of things, but especially free markets. And so while I am frustrated with people who can't see this, I also know how sophisticated the propaganda is. I know how sophisticated they are in terms of dividing us, twisting the message, tricking us with all of the demographic information and the psychographic information that they've collected through social media and through and deploying it back to us via AI and other mechanisms. So, I mean, you have to really be paying attention and really have your head on straight to see, I guess, the things that we are seeing. And no, it's not easy to watch it. But I also believe that there can be a light at the end of the tunnel. What was deployed on the American people in the spring of 2020 was a military operation, international in scope. And it was a combination of public-private partnerships plus intelligence partnerships, Mossad, CIA, Five Eyes, you name it, working together to basically color revolutionize the West, all right? Collapse the West under its own weight, and then usher us into what they're trying to move us into now, which is the new global order. This was about compliance and control, and it was a military operation waged against we the people. In all of that, they also very cleverly made it completely legal to kill us, to kill all of us with no repercussion. License to kill is the way that you portray this. We went over this when you originally released your report. There is new interest in your report because everybody is seeing how Bobby Kennedy Jr. is completely betraying us, how Maha was a complete psyop and betrayal. And now we're going back saying, wait a second, what the hell happened and what the hell is happening? And that is the one area, this truth that you and Debbie uncovered so diligently is the one area that the medical freedom movement just falls down on time and time again. When they focus on the shots and they focus on the movement and they focus on the food and any of the other distractions that they try to walk us through, we're missing this bigger picture, and it's Democrats and Republicans. All right, so that's my umbrella thesis. Tell me if I got it wrong. I know there are a lot more details that you can use to fill us in, but did I get it somewhat right, or am I off anywhere in that analysis?
Yes, this is absolutely correct. So I have published on this since I first published. My presentation was called "Intent to Harm," and I published it in 2022. I was the first person, as far as I can tell, who said this is intentional. First of all of this is not a mistake. And it is intentional, and it's not just PharmaBed. It's the government is the head of this cartel. The same framework as was used to produce Agent Orange and do whatever they did with impunity is used now here on the mass scale, on the global scale. So the government orders pharmaceutical consortium to produce unregulated poison that can then given to the military contractors, which in this case involve entire healthcare, entire academia, entire media, to then say, you will, inject, recommend, propagandize, censor and suppress opposition, all that. Then you are now a covered person using a covered countermeasure, and we give you full liability shield. And so far, this liability shield has been completely bulletproof. Nobody has been really held liable. But nobody has received any meaningful compensation for injuries or deaths, and no evidence has even reached the court as far as discussing this on merits.
Right here, we have the EcoFlow Pro Delta 3, which is a whole home system. You can actually power your entire home with it. And then attached to that, we have the 220 watt bifacial solar panel. The cool thing about this is if you have it set out, you don't have to move it every couple of hours to make sure it's facing the sun. It's always going to be absorbing sunlight and always charging your battery packs. One thing I like about this system right here is, like I said, during an emergency situation, I can power my entire house with it. And then right here, we actually have the River 3 Plus. It's a much more portable system, but still giving you plenty of power for whatever you've got. Attached to that, we have the 60 watt solar panel, so you can continue to charge this if you're out in the woods or any situation where you're away from the power grid. I love having this because I can put it in my backpack, you can keep it in your car, and you can power any electronics you need. One thing I love about having this portable battery system is it allows me to stay on the go. A lot of times when I'm out in the woods or if I'm out reporting, my camera runs out of batteries a lot sooner than I think. So I can keep them charging and then keep moving on with the mission.
It's a network of global governments, and they're not the most in charge. They have owners behind, central banks, owners of the central banks, and the owners are typically hidden. But for purposes of my investigation, I need to know the executive hierarchy of the crime cartel. And the hierarchy goes, the government provides sovereign liability protection to the pharmaceutical consortium who are acting under military orders, Defense Production Act. And this is the same thing as would happen in the global war scenario. The government commandeers private sector, tells them to drop everything, switch to production of weapons. And there's a specific legal framework that was used in the wars by the United States, also used in the wars by all kinds of other Western governments. They use exactly the same framework. And so I also compared this to production of Agent Orange, for example, for Vietnam War. for defoliation and all the horrific crimes that they have committed there, poisoning the entire country, dumping millions of pounds of this pesticide, defoliants, variety of agent. It wasn't just Agent Orange, but collectively it's called Agent Orange.
Right.
And nobody was held liable ever for any injuries or deaths, even to the American service members. I mean, after 26 years or so of private litigation, they were able to set up a compensation fund for those who survived their injuries. It's just Americans, forget Vietnamese. And so those who survived their injuries and refused about 50% of the claims submitted. And after all of it, the survivors received about $3,000 each in compensation.
Donald Trump is cooked, right? Because he is losing portions of his base, right? And he doesn't seem to be too worried about this. He is rug pulling the Epstein victims, people who care about releasing the Epstein files. He is rug pulling the medical freedom community when he partners up with the CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla. He is rug pulling the farmers, destroying them, the soybean farmers now forced to beg for subsidies because, well, the Chinese and the Russians aren't buying soybeans from U.S. farmers anymore. Also, rug pulling the ranchers. I mean, right out from underneath them in his announcement that he is going to be partnering up with Argentina, of all places, to buy beef, which is just absolutely insane. So it's one rug pull after another after another. And this is leading to many previous supporters to withdraw their support of Donald Trump. Now, as I mentioned in the last segment, it doesn't matter. Trump has new friends. He's hanging out with Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Albert Bourla and Larry Fink and George Soros. Who needs conservatives and Republicans when you have new friends? But this is impacting his support base. And we need conservatives to wake up faster, right? So this was Bryce Mitchell. Again, I don't follow him. He's a UFC fighter. He's warning Christians about Trump. He was once a strong Trump supporter. And this is what he has to say. And this is, I've seen many, many videos like this emerging, and also bigger named conservatives, people like Robert Barnes, the attorney to so many medical freedom warriors, standing up, stepping out, critiquing Donald Trump, getting louder in some of their opposition. This is good. We need more. Keep pressing. But this is what Bryce Mitchell had to say. And the question is Trump cooked? Here we go. This is Bryce Mitchell.
Hey, I want to let y'all know I'm not with Donald Trump no more. I don't support him. I don't like him. I think he's a corrupted leader. And, yeah, it took me a while to come to that conclusion, but I finally am coming to it. I do not like the guy at all. The first thing for me was he didn't release the Epstein files. They're even acting like they didn't exist. And, of course, they're sending Israel and Ukraine all of our tax dollars, just like the numbnuts before him did. Go read Revelation 13. He's the only man that fits that description. Yeah, and I'm totally done with the dude. He's done to me. He's done. He's a goner. He's compromised. He's right up there with the rest of the pedophiles, man. And it sucks to say that because I supported him for a long time, but he's a good actor. And he had me fooled for a long, long time. God bless y'all and thank you.
All right, so that was Bryce Mitchell. I run that not because I agree with Bryce Mitchell on his analysis. I do not think that Trump is the Antichrist. I think actually discussion of revelations and end times typically ends up down a rabbit hole with like crazy people. So I don't do it. I revert back to what Jesus Christ said when they asked him, hey, when is it going to be the end of the world? And he said, no one knows, only the Father knows. I don't even know. Listen, Bryce can believe what he wants to believe. That's absolutely fine. But Bryce Mitchell represents like that hardcore down home country kind of MAGA support. People, the populist support of people who went out, voted for him, Obviously, this guy has a huge following. He's a UFC fighter, and he influenced a lot of people. You know, what we're seeing there is the erosion of support in that kind of subset of Trump's support base. And it's meaningful. It's something, right? Now, he is retaining support, obviously, among the main kind of, you know, the mainstream conservative media outlets. So talk radio, obviously the big networks like Daily Wire and The Blaze, and of course, Fox News. But this is, you know, it's an example of how it's the corruption. It's this blatant, in your face corruption that is beginning to erode support among conservatives and Christians. And I think it's a good thing. I think we need more of this. So congratulations to Bryce Mitchell for waking up and cooking Trump. Is Trump cooked? I don't know. People spend a lot of time on Revelations. I see you on the live chat. You know, it's interesting. I've read it multiple times, and there's much to be learned from it, but I think people spend way too much time in, you know, trying to predict when all these things are going to happen. When, you know, if you look back in human history, I think every generation thinks that theirs is the generation that is going to see the end of the world. And I think it's just our own hubris and our own pride. But at some point it will happen, and I just don't worry about it, right? I could walk out the door tomorrow and get hit by a bus, and it's all over for me. So whether it happens with, you know, like the end times, or, you know, just a natural death, I just don't see the point in belaboring it. But anyway, it is the corruption. It is the in-your-face blatant corruption that is becoming harder and harder for conservatives to defend. It's stuff like this from the New Republic. Let's get into the headlines today. And let's really home in on how this is working, because it's just outrageous. By the way, I'm liking the New Republic. They are, you know, they're reporting. The reporting is very good, and it's kind of just, you know, what is happening, nice and linked, sourced. But this is from the New Republic. Trump DOD gives massive contract to a company tied with his son, Donald Trump Jr. He joined the company as an advisor in 2024. Looks like President Trump's family is once again using the White House as a personal piggy bank. A Florida-based drone manufacturer linked to Don Trump Jr. just received its largest ever contract to supply parts to the Pentagon, the Financial Times reported on Friday. Unusual Machines is the name of the company. It builds and sells drones, and they said that the U.S. Army had contracted it to make 3,500 drone motors, among other parts, and the Pentagon indicated it would order an additional 20,000 components in 2026. Alan Evans is a CEO. He said he believes it's the largest order the company has ever received from the U.S. government, but did not disclose the value. Nothing to see here. Has nothing to do with the fact that Don Trump Jr. joined the company on their advisory board in November of 2024, shortly after his father became commander-in-chief of the U.S. military. Trump Jr. previously disclosed that he owned roughly $4 million stake in the company, although it's unclear whether he has retained his shares. Earlier this month, Evans told Bloomberg in their reporting that Trump Jr. continued to participate in fundraising rounds, right? So this is, at least Hunter Biden skulked off to Ukraine and did his dirty business in secret behind closed doors, right? Because at least with that, like, there's some acknowledgement that this is unethical, this is immoral, this is illegal, probably unconstitutional, violates, like, I don't know, every sense of decency, every semblance of decency within the presidency, right? So at the very least, Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden had the decency to hide what they were doing behind closed doors because it was illegal. This is a whole new round of, like, in your face, there's nothing you can do. Watch me line my pockets. Watch me make my sons rich. Watch as I rug pull people with the Melania coin and the Trump coin. Watch as I conduct in your face insider trading. And and advise my son, Barron Trump, to make a trade. Was it last week or the week before? He made like $1 million or more on insider trading. This is outrageous. The president's family, and this is from this reporting, Evans insists that, by the way, Trump Jr. isn't involved in the massive deal. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Do you believe that? Oh, hell no. Of course they were involved. Don has never communicated with anyone in the administration on behalf of Unusual Machines or about the contract in question. Okay, yeah, right. The president's family now has pocketed more than $1.8 billion in cash and gifts since Trump's return to the White House, according to the Center for American Progress. Yes, they are lefty, but it's in our faces. Like, you can't deny this. The figure includes, here we go, $1.2 billion from their cryptocurrency side hustle. On Thursday, we have this. Trump pardoned the founder of Binance, which is the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, and they helped launch his family's cryptocurrency platform with World Liberty Financial with a massive $2 billion favor for its stable coin. And this is the overview, the Binance pardon. This is, also making headlines today. It's October 23rd, 2025, a decision by U.S. President Donald Trump to issue a full and unconditional pardon to Changpeng Zhao, who is the founder and former CEO of Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange. Of course, the move sparks worldwide debate over ethics, conflict of interest, and the intersection of politics and crypto, with critics now accusing it of favoritism tied to the Trump family's growing involvement in crypto. Okay, so Binance had a series of violations. He was convicted of money laundering, allowing suspicious transactions involving organizations linked to terrorism, drug trafficking. The average family of 4 below the income threshold level of, I believe it was $75K, right around there, received $10,400 in federal aid in year 2020. Now, it sounds like a great deal, right? The trouble is that Republicans have failed to clearly explain to the American people how the money printing that funded the stimulus checks and other spending led to a cost of living crisis that has hit consumers hard and now persists multiple years. We're into the end of 2024 or 25 heading into 26, and this is still persisting. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the rise in living costs in the 3 years since the COVID-19 stimulus far outweighed the benefits families received from those checks. In 2020, the average family of 4 needed $61,332 to cover annual expenses. By 2023, that same family required $77,280, a staggering $16,000 increase. So just in that 1 year, the $10,000 stimulus check that they received from the government actually cost them $16,000 in increased prices for everything. It gets worse, though. From 2021 to 2023, families spent an additional $33,179 on the same goods and services due to inflation driven by COVID-era spending. This was also reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right? So in subsequent years, it only gets worse. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has not yet released the data for 2024. They did, and it got worse, but the average family budget likely exceeded $80,000, at least $18,000 more than in 2020. This year's costs are already rising, and Daniel Horowitz wrote this in March of this year. So in effect, and here's the pull quote from this piece, which is linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show and has all of the data to back it up. We traded 1 year and a round of stimulus checks that gave us $10,400 for the average family in free cash for some families in exchange for more than $50,000 in additional costs over 4 years, a burden that will only grow unless we finally cut federal spending, which the government has indicated there is no way that they're going to do that. Now, dump on top, this was written in March of 2025, dump multiple rounds of tariffs, which are taxes on the American people, which has slowed production and the labor market in this country. And we are barreling towards a full-scale crisis. This is why, unbelievable, Trump is now touting a 50-year mortgage, which is basically slavery. That's insane. President Trump then, in this same weekend, proposed a 50-year mortgage. He posted a picture of himself and President Roosevelt. President Roosevelt gave us the 30-year mortgage after the Great Depression. Now Donald Trump is pitching the 50-year mortgage and trying to call what we are in right now some type of economic golden era, when everyone knows that we are in an absolute recession and likely a depression as well, right? In fact, Scott Bessent even admitted that last weekend on the Sunday shows. So they're just jerking us left and right. It is a schizophrenic messaging that we're getting from this administration. And this is why Marjorie Taylor Greene is dropping the F-bombs and encouraging 100 million Americans to engage in a tax strike, right? A tax revolt, which is pretty extraordinary when you think about it, coming from a sitting, duly elected member of the House of Representatives. But this is outrageous. All right. So Trump is proposing the 50-year mortgage, and this is supposed to reduce monthly payments for first-time home buyers facing median home prices of $420,000 and an average buyer at the age of 40. This is outrageous. The FHFA director, Bill Pulte, endorsed this plan as a game changer, calling it a game changer, similar to FDR's 30-year mortgage. But I mean, everyone knows this is basically renting your house from the banks and paying exorbitant amounts in interest. In fact, there were a couple, we have a couple examples now. Wall Street Apes came out with a tweet challenging this, basically saying an $802,000 mortgage comparison at 6%. If you have a 30-year mortgage, your monthly payments are $4,811. The total loan cost ends up being $1.7 million. In a 50-year mortgage, your monthly payment only drops by $600, but the total loan cost basically doubles, $2.5 million for an $800,000 property, which is insane. $1,733,000 just in interest. Interest is the problem, right? Not the mortgage. And so there was a fantastic response to this from a guy named James Fishback, who I've never heard of, but his response was dead on when they began to float the 50-year mortgage, which is again basically 21st century feudalism, right? Like where the elite billionaire class and the banksters own everything and we rent from them, our cars, our homes, you name it. This is the equivalent of the Great Reset. You will own nothing and be happy. It is the same policy, the same prescription that was offered to us by the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum, right? Like this is what we were talking about during the Biden administration. They are just pursuing that to an even greater extent during the Bush or the Trump administration, only using different talking points. It's terrible. If you're wondering why your energy prices are going up, there is manipulation happening there as well. It seems like everyone is just cheating. That they are running away with the piggy bank and really impacting regular Americans to an extent that I don't think we've ever seen in this country. It started in 2020, continued under the Biden administration through his presidency, and now continues under the Trump administration as well. This is untenable. And so all of those clips are linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. But yeah, BlackRock, and this is happening in my community. I know the houses where this happened. It's crazy when you think about how they were able to accomplish this. So we need some truth. We're going to get some truth from Jack Gamble today. He is our guest today on the Shannon Joy Show. We're going to talk about the $2,000 stimmy package, the 50-year mortgage, the AI bubble, the big tech bubble, and the bailouts being pitched to this government. It looks like, all of their record gains in the stock market are nothing but circular trading, and it's completely unethical, immoral, and probably illegal in some way. But it's like no one even asks about it anymore.